Welcome into another episode of Tailgate Talk SEC. I am Will Thomas, and today we are continuing our schedule breakdown, schedule prediction series, and we're on to the Kentucky Wildcats today. So we're back in the home studio, back in the home office, and ready to go. So Kentucky, they moved on from Stoops last season, and they brought in Will Stein, who was the offensive coordinator at Oregon. And if you've been following me that much at all, really throughout the spring and the summer at this point, I'm incredibly excited about Kentucky. Not just for this year, but really for the future. I think that Stein was an incredible hire. He's really bringing in that buzz. He could be one of these next coordinators turn into great head coaches. And now look, if he has a bunch of success at Kentucky, he won't be at Kentucky very long. That's just the reality of it. But for while he's there in Lexington, I believe they could do some really special things, really because of what he did in the portal, all the talent that he brought in, and the schedule is not the least workable thing here. Now, I'll go through game by game. I'm higher on Kentucky than most, but it's nothing crazy, and you guys will see at the end that my win-loss is pretty modest, but I do have a couple of pretty intriguing games in here. So just starting off the rip here. Week 1, they play Youngstown State. That'll be a win. Get the Will Stein era off running with a 1-0 start. And then week 2, it doesn't take very long for me to get to my first controversial point. Kentucky hosts Alabama in week 2. And I've got Kentucky taking down the Crimson Tide. Now, before everyone freaks out, which I'm sure you already did, or you just saw my stuff earlier this week and you've already done it, here's why I think this is going to happen. First off, we have seen Kalen DeBoer's Bama teams struggle on the road early. We just have. Last year, they lost that game at Florida State, who was horrible. And they went on. They beat Georgia in the regular season. They lost them in Atlanta. But they still, beat Georgia in a game, went to Atlanta, made the playoff. So losing a bad game early on, if for anybody in the country really, it does not mean that you're not a good team. It does not mean that you're on a team that can't go to the playoff. So I have Bama losing this game to Kentucky and still going to the playoff because they just did it last year. It just happened. And just looking through, similarities to the FSU game last year, that was Florida State's Super Bowl. No way around it. That was the biggest game of their season. And they knew it in that spot. That's where they played their best. The environment was its best. That was obvious. I think it could be the same thing with Kentucky here. Because this is your conference opener. This is your home conference opener for Will Stein, period. And you're getting Alabama in your building. Getting a shot at Alabama for schools like Kentucky and in that tier of the SEC, that still matters. Nick Saban's gone. That still matters when you see that logo come into your field. Kentucky is going to be all out. We need to win this game mode, this weekend when they host Bama. And in terms of the talent that Kentucky does have, Kenny Minchey at quarterback, he was step for step with CJ Carr last year at Notre Dame. He is going to be good. They have a bunch of new weapons. This is a brand new Kentucky team that Alabama's not going to be prepared for, really, just because it's so new. Nobody will really be prepared for Kentucky in this spot. That's not meant to be a dig at Bama. It's just the reality of new coach, new scheme, a bunch of new players. Nobody's going to be ready for Kentucky until they show you what they've got. And in week 2, hosting Bama, you'll see everything that they have. There won't be any skirt in the playbook. It will be everything that they've got. And for Bama, look, you can say the same thing about Kentucky. What I'm about to say is that they're breaking in a new quarterback. Yes, Kenny Minchey is a first-time starter at Kentucky. He's a first-time starter, period. But for Bama, just the simple fact of being on the road, whichever one it is, whether it's Keelan Russell or Austin Mack, and Kenny Minchey getting to be at home, that's the difference to me. It's the difference to me. Now, Bama's defense, I do believe, is going to be very good. But when Bama has a new quarterback making their first ever road start in this game, at a team whose Super Bowl it is, with what I think is not going to be a great running game again. It'll be a little bit better, but there's no one really in that running back room that I think you can really rely on, at least not early in the year. So I think a lot's going to fall onto the Bama quarterback, especially early in the year. It'll be their first road start. I think it's a perfect storm. And I've been going on for a while about this game. There are a bunch of games to get to. But I have Kentucky beating Bama in this spot in week 2 for all those reasons, really launching the Will Stein era off. Then in week 3, they go to Texas A&M. This is the most obvious, assuming they do beat Bama, regression, hangover, loss of all time. You have to go on the road. It'll be, now at this point, turn the tables, Kenny Minchey's first ever road start. It'll be at Kyle Field. This will be a loss just because A&M's going to be a really good team. And just situationally, if they do beat Bama at home, that's like going to be already the peak of their season. You're not going on the road and beating the Aggies the week after that. Because Kentucky's not that elite team that can go stack together those wins back to back. They're just not. So if they beat Bama, they will lose to A&M in week 3 to go to 2-1. Then in week 4, they come back home, host South Alabama. That'll be a win. That's a pretty good spot for that game for Kentucky to me. You get a home game against a non-power school to just kind of recalibrate after what, in my opinion, is going to be a very hectic a very high and low 2 weeks, or Let's say it goes poorly, you get 2 conference losses there between Bama and A&M, then you get a home game to really kind of recalibrate. So regardless of how it goes, that game against South Bama in week 4 is in a good spot, and I have Kentucky winning that game. In week 5, they go to South Carolina. Now, this will be Kentucky's second road game, obviously, so Minchie and that offense will have experience on the road. And look, Williams-Brice can get loud. It won't be what Kyle Field is. So I think Kentucky's able to get a win there because I like their talent better. And having already been on the road, I'll trust Kentucky to make the adjustments that they need to be able to get that win in Columbia. In week 6, they come home and they host LSU. This is another loss I have for them here. Just because Kentucky, I think they're going to be exciting. I think they can be dangerous. I don't think that they can be consistently elite, knocking off great teams. So for that reason, I've got LSU beating them. Just kind of keep progressing back to earth. They're the less talented team than LSU on the field. So give me LSU over Kentucky in week 6. And then in week 7, Kentucky goes to Oklahoma. I'll have a back-to-back loss here for the Wildcats. Just going on the road to Norman. At this point, the road woes, like you won't be shell-shocked by the road environment. But Oklahoma's defense is going to be awesome. And that environment in Norman can be very good. So it's a storm between Oklahoma's just their environment and also their defense that is going to be too much for Kentucky, in my opinion. And the Wildcats won't be developed at this point to be this elite force on offense. That's really an unstoppable force. So I'll take Kentucky to get to stumble in week 7 at Oklahoma as well, leaving their record at this point at 4-3 through 7 games. Then in week 8 they would come home and host Vanderbilt. I've got a win here. You get back home. You just lost 2 straight games. You want to get back on track. I think they can against the Commodores, who will also be bringing a new quarterback who I think is going to be Jared Curtis. Now, by week 8, he won't, necessarily be a true freshman anymore, in that sense, right? He'll still be his freshman year, obviously, but he'll have 7 games experience under his belt, so you won't be able to pin on that if you're Kentucky, but I like Kentucky's talent overall a little better than the Commodores, I do think. I have this being a regression year for Vandy, so give me Kentucky over Vanderbilt at home in week 8 to go to 5-3 heading into their bye week. So they had the bye in week 9. In week 10, they go to Tennessee, to Neyland. I've got a loss here for Kentucky. I'm not sure they can really go to Neyland for a win. Even though they will have a bye week to prepare, they'll have that time off to really get ready for it. Tennessee, I think, is going to be more talented. I think their offense will be a little bit too much. So give me Kentucky to lose that game at Tennessee. In week 11, they host Florida, come back home. I've got to win. I've got to win here mainly because I don't think that Kentucky's going to. If they lost again to Florida, that would have been 4 of their last 5 that they lost. I don't see that happening with this team. And you're going to get, not a Super Bowl mode, but Kentucky is still punching up at Florida. They still are. I know that they've won the past few games, but they're still punching up at the Gators. They get Florida at home in Lexington for the 2nd straight year. I think that Stein's going to be able to start his tenure off with a win over Florida, which is, it won't look great for John Summerall if this does happen. Coming in year 1, can't beat Kentucky, but I do have the Wildcats getting Florida at home for their 6th win of the year, officially being bowl eligible. Then in week 12, Kentucky goes to Missouri. I've got a loss here. I think that the Tigers' offense is going to be too much. At this point in the season, I think it'll really be clicking. Early on for Missouri with, transfer quarterback Austin Simmons, a bunch of new receivers, and the status of Ahmad Hardy up in the air, it might take a minute for this offense to get going. Late in the year, Missouri's offense might be one of the best in the league, maybe even in the country. So by week 12, I like Missouri to take down Kentucky in Como. And in week 13 to end the year, Kentucky will get Louisville at home. That rivalry game, I like a W here. Cap off the Stein era in year 1 with a win over your rival on your home field to go 7-5. So Kentucky's win total for this year, I believe, is like 4.5 or 5. So I'm definitely above the average, outlook for Kentucky this year. I just think that we're in an era, obviously, we saw with Indiana last year. I'm not predicting an Indiana jump for Kentucky, but where it can turn around quickly. And for Kentucky, 7 wins in year 1 is not that far-fetched to me. So I think that with Will Stein, with the new energy, with all that talent, you'd see a lot of good flashes from the Wildcats this year. I don't think they compete in the SEC. I don't think they win 8 or 9 games. I don't think we're ever talking about them as a playoff team, past week 6, once they get that second loss to LSU in theory. But Kentucky's going to be dangerous. They're going to be pretty scary, and they can win some games this year. I'm very high on what Will Stein can do with the Wildcats. And like I said before, if he does have success here in Lexington, the unfortunate truth is that he's probably not going to be there very long. But for while he is there, I'm excited to see what he can do with Kentucky. So that'll do it for the Wildcats schedule prediction. Got him going 7-5, making the postseason. If you have been enjoying all this college football preview content, all this SEC stuff, I'm doing it every single day up until the season begins. So subscribe to me here and follow me on Twitter. I'll be going schedule breakdowns every single day. Tomorrow we've got LSU. That'll be a fun one. So thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Tailgate Talk SEC. I've been Will Thomas, and I will see you next time.